Uh, how about we get this party started, huh? All right, here we go. Welcome to our first email engagement benchmarking report, specifically for associations. We took a much different spin on email engagement. Obviously, if you know what PropFuel is, there's a reason for that. Now, with me today, I have a few of my friends. Melissa is a client success manager here at PropFuel. She works very, very closely with a lot of our clients. And we have our friends Jenna Goins, Keith Gentry from NACUFs and ACEP, and they're going to share with you some of their email experiences. And we'll get to those introductions in a minute. Before we do, I'd like to introduce, for those of you that are not familiar with PropFuel, and by the way, before we go any further, in the chat, I really like involving you guys. And oftentimes in our webinars, we have a really strong chat and lots of comments. If you could, I'd love it if you'd share your name, and let's just do your name and your organization. Love to see who you're with. And this is also so everybody else can see who is participating in the event today. So jump in the chat, name and organization. And if there's anything, if you have questions along the way or comments along the way, please do jump in and put them in there. I will be keeping an eye on these. I'm going to be moderating more or less, where I'm going to be changing the slides. So with four presenters, that might be interesting. Having said all that, let me introduce PropFuel in case you are not familiar. This is our worldview. So that's why I think it's important for you to understand who and what PropFuel is. We are 100% focused on insight and engagement. And we help organizations do that through email and SMS. I have to say it's mostly email, but there's an SMS component to insight and engagement as well. The focus is around personalizing member engagement. And we do that using this methodology that we call conversational engagement. But the methodology is very simple. It's ask, capture, act. It mimics the way humans engage. So, all right, having said that, let's jump into some of the benchmarking. This is how we got to developing this benchmarking report. And it all stems from the concept that I believe, email is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. It's been abused. It's been one of these things that when you don't know what else to do, you send out another email. And so what it comes down to is now we look at our email and we're deleting far more. We're ignoring far more. Far more is going into spam than the ones that are relevant. And even the ones that are relevant, oftentimes you have to pick through them to figure out, to find the relevance. It turns your job into that of a filter, right? And now, most of the engagement or most of the emails that we send are broadcast emails. They're these one directional. We have something to say. We want to tell some people something, usually tell people something about us. And there's a minimal opportunity for people to exchange and engage in those. And so that's the premise behind what it is we're talking about today. Now, conversational engagement, and this is the foundation underneath which PropFuel lies. Conversational engagement allows for this two-way exchange. And that's, again, through this process of ask, capture, act. We're mimicking the way conversations happen. And that's why we call this conversational engagement. If you were to welcome somebody who just joined your association, you're not going to give them a whole bunch of information and throw a bunch of pamphlets at them. You're going to spark a conversation. Hey, I'm so glad you're here today. Why did you join? And based on what they say, then that's going to prompt a different response out of you. That's a conversation, and that's what we tried to mimic with this. So having said that, we looked at 13 million emails that were sent out through PropFuel over the course of 2023 from, so a little bit over 200 associations that had sent these emails. We compared those emails to broadcast statistics that we found through some MailChimp report, very specific. By the way, we utilize data specific to nonprofits. So we're looking at emails that MailChimp, millions and millions and millions of emails that MailChimp sent, and assuming that most of them were broadcast emails. So what we're doing is we're bundling this all together and trying to come up with an interesting story to pull out some interesting stats. So some of the stats that you're going to see are very, very related to conversational engagement, and some of them are comparing conversational engagement metrics to others. So let's jump into some of these metrics. First of all, let's look at one metric that seems to be the most popular metric. Put in the chat, tell me what you think about the metric open rate. I'd be very curious what your initial reaction is. Is it important to your organization or not? You can see my opinion of it through that little emoji there. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa knows my opinion of the open rate. Here's the thing with the open rate. I think it's important to see how one email might compare to another with this rather esoteric metric called the open rate. The open rate by no means is telling you what percentage of people you sent it to opened it. That is by no means what it's telling you. But if you send out one email and it gets a higher open rate than another email that you sent out recently, that's a pretty good comparison. That one email probably had more exposure than another, right? So that's the degree to which excellent. Yes, Nick, I completely agree. It can be used to compare two emails to the same exact audience to compare, but they are inflated by Apple privacy and all kinds of things. Yes, you probably have very little exposure to how many people actually saw your email. All right. So that's my little rant about open rates. Having said that, this is a little focused on us, but the concept of this conversational engagement when you ask a question versus when you broadcast. So this is really conversational versus broadcast. You're looking at a much higher open rate on average than you would through just a broadcast. So generally speaking, emails that are posing a question out there are going to see a higher response rate than those that are not. Now, if you want to, I'm sorry, I said response rate, open rate. Now, metric that I put a lot of stock into is click-through rate or response rate. Now, there is no response rate, so to say, in a broadcast email. I mean, you might consider response rate who responds to that email, but very few people are going to respond to a broadcast email. So forget about the concept of response rate. What we're doing now is comparing response rate to click-through rate, because a response rate in a conversational engagement email is a click. So when somebody clicks on something, we consider that a response or a click-through to get to the next stage of that level of engagement. Now, the response rates in comparing conversational engagement, again, this thing where you're actually asking a question, you're driving somebody to talk to you, that's going to be significantly higher than what you'll see in a typical broadcast email. But response rate and click-through rate, love those metrics. I'm glancing over at the comments just to see mixed on open rate. Yeah, I want to scan through and see if there's anything that I should be commenting on. And Melissa, will you jump in if you see something that I should comment on?
For sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, so response rate, click-through rate, love it. Really like those metrics. Not as good as conversion, by the way, but that's much harder to measure, right? And we're not going to touch on conversion rates, although that is a very, very interesting metric. Ultimately, that's what we want people to do. Conversion to what? I don't know, whatever it is your email is trying to get them to do, right? So like if we want them to sign up for an event, that's conversion. If we want them to renew, that's conversion. If we just want them to read something, that would be conversion. All right. Engagement rate, this is kind of interesting. Now, this is not an average. This is just, I went into a campaign and I pulled some metrics out of the campaign. So this is not an industry average or anything like this. I was looking at a campaign where this organization had sent 27,000 emails. They had a pretty good delivery rate. Their open rate was very good, actually. And this is a series of, I don't know, 2 or 3 check-ins. Now, their most recent check-in, oh, no, I'm sorry, their average response rate across all 3, which is very, very high, by the way, was 39%. But the engagement rate is what I want to focus on. And this is a new metric that we are embracing on our side. This is the brand new thing that we've recently rolled out in the PropFuel platform. But the engagement rate, I think, is a really, really valuable metric, which says in this particular campaign, over the course of however many emails you sent, X percent, in this case, 49% of the people that are engaged in this campaign actually engaged, clicked on something in that campaign. And so to me, this number is far more valuable than any of the other metrics, open rates or response rates or click-through rates. So how many people is this campaign engaging? I like that one. Again, please do jump in if you have any questions or comments. All right. Now, smaller segmented campaigns have a bigger impact. What that means is when you're targeting your messaging to a smaller group of people, you're going to see not only higher open rates on average, but you're going to see a much better response rate as well. Oftentimes, because when you start getting into these large campaigns, you're probably putting some bad data in there and you're mass marketing your message to a lot of people. And all of a sudden there's oftentimes a lack of relevance. So the only takeaway here is that you're probably going to see better results in smaller groups as opposed to larger groups. Maybe that's obvious, but it's very important to note that it's real. Day of the week. Now, some of this is not surprising at all to see that, midweek you're seeing more emails than on the weekends. What was a little surprising is seeing that on the weekends, despite the small number of emails that are going out, you're actually getting a much higher response rate on that small number of emails. Fascinating to me. By no means am I suggesting you change your email strategy so that you're sending out weekend emails all the time. But it certainly is something to think about and maybe dabble with, maybe experiment a little and send some emails out and check out some of the metrics that you get on the weekends versus during the week. Because during the week, you're competing with a lot more emails than you are on the weekend. All right, email strategy, talk or listen. This one is a very simple concept that I want you to think about. Generally speaking, in email, constantly sending, broadcasting. And by no means am I suggesting that you don't do that. What most organizations are not doing right now is listening. And this is the listening component of it, is asking a question, getting them to talk to you, and based on what they say, then taking action. So this is also something you don't want to do a lot of. I call it, it's almost like a dark chocolate. Some people say they like to eat a lot of dark chocolate. I don't. For me, it's a dark chocolate, which means one of these things you dabble in a little bit. You have a little here and there. You're still a healthy mix of talking and listening is really, really important. Another thing that is important, assuming that you have a methodology to do it effectively, is to send reminders to emails to people that did not engage with the email. Now, don't send it to the people that engaged, but to the people that didn't engage. And if it's an important email where you want some feedback, that's where a reminder is going to drive more response. Maybe that's obvious, but I think it's worthy of note. Reminders are a strategy that some people I've noticed do not embrace. All right, and then finally, simple is better. Actually, I don't know if this is finally. I think it's one or two more stats I'm sharing before I turn it over to you, Melissa. Response rate is better when things are simpler. Newspapers were written for the, anybody, you guys know what a newspaper is? Back in my day, we used to have these paper things that with words on them, we'd read them and have all the news, but the articles were written for that of a fifth grade reading level. And there's a reason for that, because generally speaking, we're all lazy. We don't want to work too hard when it comes to things. And same is true when it comes to emails. Like, I don't want to have to think too hard. I don't want to have to read too much. So simpler things tend to drive better response rates. Having said that, there is a time when lower response rates are just as valuable as high response rate. For instance, when you get an open text, you'll notice this is the lowest response rate is when you ask an open text question. However, they tend to be really, really valuable. So that's something to bear in mind. All of these metrics that I'm showing you, there's some upsides and there's some downsides, and you have to take a lot of these intricacies into account. Sometimes getting 3 really valuable responses is better than getting 500 responses to something that's not important. All right. And then I think this is the last one, Melissa, before I turn it over to you. There's a number of campaign types that we analyzed, and some of these campaign types just happen to get way better responses. And my suspicion is this is looking at conversational engagement. We don't have a way of breaking down the broadcast metrics, but in terms of conversational engagement, the types of campaigns that are going to get the best response rates on average are renewals, all the way down to asking for money. So having said that, Melissa, you're going to talk to us. Your role is a client success manager. You work with about 80 or so, maybe a little fewer now, clients. You work with them. You see the way they're engaging members over email all the time. So I'd love if you take us through some of the things you've seen with our clients, and then you're going to bring Jenna and Keith to the table as well. All right.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Dave. So here at PropFuel, we work with our clients to sort of differentiate between what belongs as a broadcast email where you're telling people stuff and what would be a better fit for conversational engagement. And as Dave said, conversational engagement is really about not only just telling people things, but allowing your members the opportunity to talk back to you. Because in a real human conversation, you would both talk and you would listen to them. There'd be a back and forth exchange. So for example, if you were standing in front of somebody and asking about their renewal, you could send them a broadcast email that says, hey, renew now. All of us do this, but you could end up sending 15, 20, 30 emails saying, hey, renew now, click here, this is a big button, renew now. Changing that over to a conversational engagement is about thinking about how you would want that natural human conversation to flow. There's a lot.
Wrong way. Sorry about that.
You're good.
I'm gonna get way better at this as time goes on. Go on, Melissa.
I'm happy to be your guinea pig. All good. Let's save the good button clicking for Jenna and Keith, please. We're so used to planning out as association professionals, planning out our campaigns of, okay, I'm going to send this many renewal emails and they're going to go on this date and they're going to give this kind of content. That's great. What PropFuel is really going to allow you to do, either if you're moving the entire process to PropFuel or moving portions of it to PropFuel, is capture that intent. Because when you're sending that renewal email out to somebody, you have no idea why they're not clicking on that Renew Now button. Even if they click on that Renew Now button, you have no idea, other than if they've converted, why they didn't finish all the way and finish their renewal. Did something come up? Did they plan to renew, but just kind of needed the dollar amount so they can get their boss's approval to do it? Did they realize partway through they didn't have the authorization to do it? All of those question marks you need answered by that member. You can make up ideas in your head, but until you stop and ask, you're not really going to find that out. And so we at PropFuel work with our clients one-on-one, super hands-on on this concept of conversational engagement. And one of the biggest things I like to do is just say, like, let's strip it all away. Forget all the million things that you've done before. Stop. Keep things simple. If that person was right in front of you, what would you ask? What would you need to say to them to start the conversation? And then what would you ask to find out their interests, their needs, or their intent? So renewals are a great example. You want to know if they're going to renew, or maybe you want to know why they're hesitating. But just keeping it simple and thinking about how would you want that conversation to go is what's going to get you to your end goal of ultimately finding out more about your members and, in a perfect world, converting them and writing anything you need back to your AMS or to your marketing system. So here are some of the questions that I think are just perfect examples of where you can't know with this information. You can guess it through click-throughs, but you can't know if somebody's planning to renew, why someone's waiting to renew, what's most important to them just through click-throughs alone. You kind of have to ask. And for example, just to take the first one, if someone's not planning to renew, find out. Is it because they're retiring? Is it because they are waiting for approval, or they need the invoice in a certain way to pass along to their boss, but their finance department had some changes and it's taking forever? All of that, you could pick up the phone and call every single one of them. And I'm sure at some point we all get that desperate towards the end where we're like, we just need to know. And we're going to go call them. and you may or may not got them on the phone, but PropFuel is designed to really help you have those conversations at scale in a meaningful way that gives your members that voice to tell you what exactly is going on with them. So here are some of the core use cases for PropFuel. And if this sounds a little overwhelming, like, wow, I got to think through a whole conversation, I don't know, I'm not that great on the fly. We have blueprints for all of these campaigns. So all of these core use cases, from onboarding, engagement, profile updates, listing the information saying, is this right for you? Like, is this the correct information? And if no, finding out what is the right information and writing that back, through acquisitions, lapsed member win-back, event registration, all of these core use cases we have built as blueprints in PropFuel. So you just need to fill out a few blanks, click run, and you don't have to guess on what's the best practice to implement, of like, what's the timing or what's the question phrasing, or to Dave's metrics, what kind of question should it be? Multiple choice, should it be open-ended? All of this is pre-built for you and is meant to make your lives easier, because that's really why we're here, is to make your lives easier, make you have an easier time of engaging in meaningful conversations with your members. Which is why I'm super excited to introduce two of our clients today that are here to walk through how they've put this information into practice, how conversational engagement has shifted the way that they communicate with their members, and what they've learned along the way. So first, I'd love to introduce Jenna Goines, Director of Membership and Marketing with ACEP. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I'm excited to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, I am the Director of Membership and Marketing at NACUPS. We've been a customer of PropFuel for a little less than a year. And in that time, we've really transformed our organization. Dave, you can push us to the next slide. Here are a couple points about how we used to operate. All of our members received everything, and our prospects actually didn't receive anything. So they didn't know anything about us. They weren't being invited to our conferences. They knew nothing. None of our technology worked together. We were really not syncing our lists together. We were downloading lists, uploading lists. It was a lot of work. We didn't have any insight on who wanted what information, and everything was one size fits all. So when we were telling everyone the same thing, they just tuned out. They quit listening to us. They deleted our emails. They complained about how many emails they were getting. And so we changed our mindset. We can go to the next slide. I'll start here with a member recruitment campaign. This was one of our first campaigns when we launched with PropFuel last year. And we simply asked people, this was one of their first communications they'd gotten from us, because we weren't sending anything to our prospects before. Are you interested in becoming an ACEP member? We just wanted to know, you have thousands of prospects, and this way you can find out who those key prospects are. This gave us those 48 people who we knew we could either leave alone or who were our most viable prospects. And it really helps narrow things down so that my team knows who they need to be getting on the phone with to try and bring them into a membership.
Jenna, I find this really interesting. 2%, generally that would trigger a level of disappointment, only 2%. But this is the point I was making. And I know you and your organization well enough to know that 48 prospects raising their hand is amazing, even though it's just 2%.
Yes, that's correct, especially because these people didn't know us. NACUPS has suffered from just a general no one knows who we are problem for decades. Our core members know us and love us, but anyone else in the industry didn't know who we are. So this 2% response rate, it looks low, but for us, this was huge because we were able to recruit members immediately off of this campaign. We can go to you. So if you want to kind of dig into the back end of what was going on here, if someone said, yes, I'm interested, we send them to a page that was this promotion that was going on at the time, which allowed them to join us and receive 15 months of membership for the price of 12. If they said, I'm possibly interested, tell me more, we sent them to a landing page, which we easily built in PropFuel, and it just gave them a little bit more information. And then finally, if they said, I'm not interested, we asked why. This tells us, helps us get around those objections. It also gave us the opportunity to ask things like, if they said budget, we will ask, when's your budget year? So we can reach out to you at that time next year and make sure you set aside a little bit of money for us. Different things like that. And then it also helped us know, are we reaching out to the wrong person? Or is this never going to work for them? Maybe they don't have dining on their campus anymore because we work with food service professionals. So here's a few screenshots of those things that took place when they clicked that. So if they said no, they got sent to another question. Why is it not a fit for you? and they would tell us why. If they said, tell me more, they got sent to this page that had a couple key bullets on why they should join. And then if they said yes, we sent them to log in and join. We also use PropFuel at NACEP for our new member onboarding. This allows us to segment our communications to them throughout the year and to start talking to them about all of the different things they may or may not want to use their membership for. So the first thing we ask them is, what are you hoping to get out of your membership? We know we offer a lot of benefits, but we also know not every benefit is for every one of our members. So when we ask them this, they can answer. They want to expand their knowledge and skills. If they say that, then we're going to give them information on our online learning, on our in-person events, on our different educational experiences. If they say, I want to grow my network, they're going to see this screenshot that is up here and how to use NACEP to grow their network. So it gives them links to our online members only community. It gives them information on our in-person events. It suggests how they can reach out to other members. Suggests they get onto the social media so that they can connect with people through that platform. And also explains how they can share their experiences. So how they can use NACEP to tell their own success stories and get themselves out there. And then throughout the year, we ping them every couple of weeks or months, depending on where they're at in the campaign. So once we know what they want from their membership, we ask them how they like to learn, how they like to network. And we actually conclude the campaign asking them to help us find our net promoter score. Would you recommend NACEP to a friend, which is great data for us to have, knowing if our first year members are interested in sharing more about NACEP with other people. Yeah, we can go on to the next one. Another way that we've used PropFuel is for webinar registration. So for us, we were coming up on a lot of friction for our members in registering for things. So they didn't want to log in. They didn't want to put in their information every single time. We could send them to Zoom and they could easily put in their name and their email address, but that left us with a gap of getting the data into our database. So we used PropFuel to resolve this issue by having it right back to our database, who is attending. All they have to do is click yes, we download the list and upload it to Zoom on their behalf. So the experience for them is much smoother. It's one click and they're registered for the webinar. When we do this, our webinar attendance goes up significantly. We've also used PropFuel to increase conference revenue. So for example, we have asked them for our spring conference series, which is a group of several conferences, which city they're going to join us for in, or if they're not going to be able to make it. That way we know, hey, we're not going to market one conference to somebody who's already said they're coming to another one. It's just helped cut down on the amount of emails they're receiving and essentially helped them pay more attention because they know when they're receiving something, it's something they're interested in. We've also used it to drive revenue by asking, are you interested in advertising, sponsorship, both of these, which helped us again with the prospecting. And when we did this campaign, we instantaneously brought in sponsors because they didn't even know the opportunities were out there. So it helped us find people that we wouldn't normally reach out to start selling new sponsorships to.
Hey, Jenna, can we go back to that previous slide? I think it's underestimated the power of giving people a cleaner inbox. And I love the one on the left where you're saying where you're going to join us so that you can cut down on the email clutter, because inevitably each one of these would end up being a whole bunch of their own emails. If someone's going to one event, they might not go to the other event. And so just giving them the gift of the cleaner inbox of finding out, if they say no, they're not going to come, we don't need to send them more stuff. Or if they're going to come in Buffalo, great, let's focus on Buffalo and not on Little Rock. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Melissa, because for us, especially, we were transforming these conferences from being previously regional into something now where we are suggesting people come to the one that best fits their calendar. So learning that they want to go to one that wasn't in their region was also really powerful information for us to have.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then so this is kind of a follow-up on that conference revenue prospecting, but this was very general prospecting that we sent to all of our supplier members. So our vendors who are trying to sell to our core members, we have a membership type for them as well. And we just wanted to know, are you looking to get more exposure for your brand? They could, if they said yes, it gave us an alert for our director of business development so he could follow up. If they said maybe, send me more information, we actually had an automation on the back end. So they instantaneously got an email that looked like it was customized for them. And then if they said not at this time, that was great. We left them alone. And that really helped us focus our efforts. So as you can see, we had a 7% response rate here, which is higher than our previous 2%, but that's 171 people that we didn't know what they wanted before. And as you can see, the vast majority said yes, they want more exposure. So this really helped us in that prospecting. So if they said no, we said, hey, thanks, we'll leave you alone. If they said, tell me more, they got this email. And then if they said yes, we sent them straight to our webpage where they could learn more about the opportunities. It also sent an internal alert to Jim, who's our director of business development, so that he could know that that was a really hot prospect and he should follow up with them immediately.
Really important point there is oftentimes I spoke about conversion briefly as the ultimate metric, right? But sometimes all you need is little insight. And although the prospect in this case may not actually take action immediately, if you have that insight, you know who's most likely to take action, and then you can pursue them any other medium you'd like the phone, for example.
Great. Yeah. So over the past 10 months or so, we've seen a lot of change around here. Our emails are more targeted. So members aren't getting every single email like they used to get. If they tell us they're not coming to a conference, that's fine. We will stop telling you about it. If they register for a conference, that's great too. We're going to stop marketing to you to come to that event. We're getting to know them more as individuals rather than just their job title or their location. So just because someone has the same job title, we now know they might only want to do online education and never come to an in-person event. Perhaps they're not allowed to travel. So we're learning those kinds of things about people so that we can make everything more individualized. Our communications are customized. It's always embarrassing to admit, but when I first started here, we were sending out emails that said "Dear Member," and this was in the 2020s, so it wasn't that long ago. We don't do that anymore, and our members are listening, engaging. We actually saw growth in our membership for the first time since 2007 last year, and we have actually already grown in 2024. So we are really moving in a great direction, and we're very excited about it, and so are our members. And our technology works together. So we have a lot more information in our database that we didn't have before that's actually usable, rather than just filling it with facts that no one cares about. And it's really changing our reputation. As I mentioned, we're growing in revenue, we're growing in numbers. Everything is looking up, and we're very excited for the future.
I love the vision, by the way, Jenna, the fact that you guys know where you need to move as an entity. It's not all about email, and it's not all about the phone calls and the conferences. It's this collective system that you're trying to create, and it's just one component of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm always telling clients it's like one thing at a time. Like, especially new clients that are starting, they're like, oh my God, like, there's so many things I could do. Like, where do I even start? Just starting with one foot in front of the other. Let's focus on one easy, quick win, find another easy, quick win, then look for maybe something that's a little bit bigger, but is totally automated so that once you set it up, you don't have to keep managing it all the time. It'll keep pulling people in from your AMS, just moving slowly from there. Build up that momentum. Awesome. If you guys have a question, feel free to pop that in the Q&A or in chat. I'd love to field those and answer those live while we're here. In the meantime, I'm so pleased to introduce Keith Gentry, Director of Member Engagement and Insights at ACEP. Thanks, Keith.
Pretty good title there, Keith. I mean, that's pretty representative of what we're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. My name's Keith Gentry. I'm with the American College of Emergency Physicians. I believe we've been with PropFuel a little over 2 years now, which about marks the same time period that I've been with ACEP. I've been there about 2.5 years in the membership department. And we were looking for something different whenever we came to PropFuel. In the past, I believe ACEP has just been involved with pretty much the same thing that everyone else is doing for the majority, emailing. We're not really getting that feedback. We're not putting the data to use for anything that we're actually receiving. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
Sorry, I'm getting a little excited.
You're good. All good.
I don't know what just got into me.
At the same time, just like Jenna mentioned, members were overloaded with email. We heard complaints, absolutely, that people are getting too much information. Within the emergency medicine realm, we know that our members they have very little time for attention to other things outside of work. So what we put in front of them needs to be very important and relevant to them. So this was one of the ways that we could tackle that and really hone in on what needed to be communicated. We also had, through our prior email transactions, we had a lot of individuals who unsubscribed. And these would be global unsubscribes. So we would really have no way to contact them afterward. They would either mark us as spam, and that way the system would flag it as a global unsubscribe, or they would completely unsubscribe directly from all of our communications. So that was a huge problem. We also, from the point that I kind of started with ACEP, we had a lot of staff that was resistant to change. They had been doing things a certain way for quite a while, didn't really want to see anything change because thought we were doing pretty well on what was going on. Again, we were looking at those open rates. That was a huge factor that they were throwing in there. So open, click rates, and we were tracking conversions as well through UTMs. So they were doing their own research and thinking that things were going pretty well, but we wanted to mix things up a little bit and see what we could alter here. So one of the campaigns that we put together was regarding our meeting registration for our scientific assembly, which is our larger annual conference. We put this together at the request of our board that wanted to come in and find out more information from potential registrants. So last year during the summer, we were ramping up registration for our meeting in Philadelphia, and we wanted to put together a campaign to send out for registrants that hadn't yet registered. So we sent them a simple question. We noticed you haven't registered. Are you willing to join us this year? And we had a surprisingly high response rate. 10% of the individuals responded. And yes, the percentage for yes was a little lower than expected. But then again, we followed that up with, well, why? Why are you not planning on attending this year? And we found that it was a location reason. That was the biggest concern there. A lot of individuals did not want to go to the East Coast. So it could have been a matter of, it's just not a great location for this year for me. Looks like second there was cost. We typically always see something regarding cost, whether that is the cost itself or the perceived value of what they're receiving. And then, it went down from there. ACEP is not aligned with my values. Of course, there are certain reasons why someone wouldn't attend the meeting, and it really stems from larger issues that maybe the organization is not seen in a positive light with that individual for whatever reason. And again, we can follow that up with other questions and continue the conversation to find out, well, what exactly do you mean by that? Is there something that we can have a larger direct conversation on outside of email? So it gave us an opportunity there in order to engage with individuals and really get more information as far as what are people's feelings toward the organization itself.
Keith, I love how simple your messaging is here. Oftentimes we get bogged down with too many words, and you clearly did not in this one. I mean, really simple, to the point, and quite compelling to answer, which is why I think you got such a high response rate from a rather disengaged group of people. But you also got almost 200 people to respond favorably to this question. So while you got fewer people than you wanted to say yes, it's still almost 200 people. I think that's an amazing conversion for the stage at which this email was sent out.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were very pleased with it. And then during the meeting, we had normally sent out, your daily newsletter and to all attendees. And then we'd have certain things on site that were daily. What's going on, what events are happening, what do you focus on, all of that sort of thing. But we wanted to shift it online and use PropFuel in a different way. So we had these kind of daily check-ins with registrants. And then one of those final questions is we wanted to see, well, we're in Vegas next year. Are you interested in joining us there? And so we had a very good response on this one as well. Our registrant attendee is probably about 5,500 to 6,000 a year, so it's a large meeting. So 1,120 answers to that. That was amazing. And then we can still this year we can take this information and see, well, who hasn't registered yet that told us last year, yes, I'm absolutely going. Now we can reach out to them and we can say, well, oh, last year you told us that you were going. I don't see that you're registered. How can we fix that for you? Are you unsure about? So we can follow up with another question. So within last year, we also asked for those people that were not sure, well, tell us more. Same thing with the previous question. What additional insight can we get from you giving us that initial feedback? And as you can see there's lots of different reasons that people aren't sure. Again, cost is there. With our specific group of people having that time off, they're very busy individuals. They really don't know whenever they're going to be able to take time off. There are currently staffing issues within emergency medicine for physicians. So we can definitely see that they're unsure about what the future holds as far as time off. One of the recent topics of conversation that has kind of spurred within emergency medicine is this concept of unionization. It's not something that is typical within the medicine field as far as emergency medicine physicians. So we wanted to get out in front of this issue and try to get as much information as possible regarding people's sentiment toward unionization. So we sent out this campaign to ask individuals how interested are they in joining a union, just to kind of get a feel for where people are at before we even started internal campaigns and PR campaigns around unionization concept. So we had quite a few, 39% that were very interested in joining a union. And then again, you go down from there. Some people are not sure. Some people, I'm interested, but I'm not really sure what this is about. And then we do have very few people that had started a union. There was one, I think, in particular that had been started in one location. So we just wanted to try and get ahead of that, get more information so that we could make internal decisions on how to handle moving forward.
Keith, did this trigger certain actions or was this really more just capturing information about you?
No, this was actually actionable information that went back to our board of directors within meetings and everything. They're deciding how to move forward with this concept and what our impact will be regarding unionization, how we're going to step forward in that area.
Interesting.
Another one of the earlier campaigns that we did was related to updating contact preferences. We were able to tie this back to our current CRM, which I will say is not the most successful integrative system. It's pretty older, and we do have some issues there, but we can, at the bare minimum, connect PropFuel back to the contact record. So here we wanted to see if individuals who were opted out, we could actually get them back in there. And then, as I had mentioned earlier, we had a lot of global unsubscribes. And a lot of these individuals we hadn't talked to in quite a long time. So once we were able to connect our system to PropFuel, then we could generate this question. And then if they said yes, we could flag them in the system and opt them back in. Now, some of that was a little bit manual because of the email system and global unsubscribes. Then we had to send a list out saying that these individuals have given us permission to opt themselves back into communications. So sometimes there is a manual component there. Not everything works out 100% of the time with an integration, but at least we have that option there. So we had a great response rate, and these were individuals that we couldn't talk to. They were not receiving our emails. So 25% of the people we reached out to. Now, yes, 62 of them said, no, I've opted out. Please leave me alone. I'm not interested in receiving communications. And out of that, we asked another follow-up. Well, what's not valuable to you? So that we could, again, pivot internally and figure out what we need to do, what people are seeing, and how we want to move forward with our own emails. So again, 80%, I received too many emails, which is what we thought all along. People are being bombarded with emails. They're not relevant to each individual, not personalized. So that leads to overload and unsubscribes.
It always shocks me when I see one of these, do you want to come back to us sort of emails. It goes to people that have opted out, how high the response rate is to them. And here's yet another example. Well done.
Let's see. And then, so another thing that we had implemented, so just to give some backstory, I mentioned that I had started about 2.5 months ago. Well, we also had the kind of director of membership who was over the entire division, started a little bit before me. So we're kind of fresh views that are coming into the association. And we wanted to do lots of different things that may not have been attempted in the past. And one of those was we wanted to implement SMS as a communication method. So we had our IT department, actually this was before PropFuel provided SMS as a option, and we had them build out a SMS capability internally. But we set up a contact preference on our contact record to say someone is now opted into text messaging. We knew that we needed to limit it to membership reminders only. We didn't want to expand out into marketing, because then you get people fearful. Oh, I opted into your text messaging. Oh, they're going to blast me about everything. And I'm not interested in hearing about your product selling or your meetings. So we left it to, this is a membership only reminder. And we specified in there that you will really only get up to 2 text reminders per year about the membership, just so that we could settle any concerns from the member side on that. So we sent this out. Would you like to be opted in? This is a new thing that we're offering. If they said yes, then we said, okay, well, here's the phone number that we have for you. Can you please verify if this is correct? Because otherwise, I don't know how stale the data is in our system. I don't know if that's a good mobile number. I don't know if that's a landline. We need to be able to at least reach you on that number if we're texting you. So if that's not good, please tell us what it is. And we were able to connect those fields that they automatically went back into the database on that person's record and saved. And at the same time, we had also implemented what's called RVM, ringless voicemail, where we can drop a voicemail into someone's voicemail without the phone ringing. Now, sometimes it will ring half a second, and you might see that, but the intent is for it to actually not ring, but leave them a message. So we wanted to follow that up with another preference with that as well. Okay, you mentioned this. Would you also be interested in receiving a voicemail regarding your reminder for membership? What about postal mail? So those were a few of the things that we asked so that we could get all of those preferences in, because we're sending mail, we're sending email, we're sending text, and we're sending RVMs for membership renewal.
And Keith, all of these preferences were written back to the database?
They are.
Excellent. Excellent. What a great way to update profiles, contact records without requiring people to log in to their account.
Yes, because that is listed on their account whenever they log in, those preferences. But again, they do have to log in. So this bypassed that, just like Jenna was saying, people don't want to log in. So this made it simple and easy for them.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Let's see. So this kind of follows up the same thing that I had mentioned. We offered a paperless billing, where instead of sending them pieces of paper, we wanted to opt them into one of the other notification methods. They were automatically, no matter what, opted into email, which is the regular email transactional communication. But other than that, we wanted to see, well, would you be interested in going paperless so that we can stop sending as much paper? It does save cost on our end. We're save staff time stuffing envelopes because we do all this stuff in-house, postage especially. So from the time that we open this up, we now have over 8,000 members on paperless billing. And then that also coincides with all of our individuals who are in group billing. So the more that we increase that number, the less amount of paper we're actually sending out. We've cut paper sending by about 38%. So it's been awesome. Fantastic.
Oops.
Let's see. So what we've done, we're now making data-driven decisions, and it's not just based on that information that they were previously getting, which was clicks and open rates. Yes, we did have UTM tracking that kind of tracked our conversion rate, especially for things like membership, meeting registration. We kind of already had that in place, but they were really heavily relying on the clicks and the open rates. Here we can see, we can start with one question, a very basic question, yes, no, or a small multiple choice, and then we can follow it up with a more insightful question, and then take that data back and figure out how to move forward best, whether that's segmentation, changing up the quantity of emails that we're sending out, changing up the content in some way. What can we do based on the information that we were given? We're now updating member profiles without requiring login, which is fantastic. We've had a lot of luck with that, whether that's paperless, updating your contact information. I think we've had some other campaigns regarding our graduating residents, because they're in moving transition once they graduate, and then they're kind of transitioning into an attending physician, and everything is in flux. They're moving across the country. We're trying to gather what's your new mailing address, what's a good email address that's a personal email. So very easy things to do without requiring them to log in, have their password, their username. They can get it done, and we can get what we need. And then we're asking for feedback and taking action based on that feedback, rather than just using the clicks and the opens and kind of maybe making an assumption with what's going on, what the people are wanting, what we're seeing, because there's a lot of assumptions to be made based on that information. It's not as insightful as we think, and there's lots of caveats that could be meddled in there. So now that we actually have very specific feedback, we can move forward the best way possible and give them a personalized experience for membership. And we're now meeting members' expectations for timely engagements. They want things at specific times. They want to be followed up with at specific times. We can ask them within those questions, okay, now's not a good time. When should I reach back out? Should that be 2 months from now, 3 months from now? And then even though some of those things might be more manual, we can still keep track of them and make the better experience for the member. So it's all about no longer making assumptions of what they want, but actually getting to know what they want and taking action on that.
Thank you, Keith and Jenna. So listen, I do have a question for you both, but before I do, we're going to put 2 links into the chat now. One is to download the full report that is more data oriented than just this what you saw in this webinar. And then the other thing that I want you to consider is we have this workshop. This is not intended for existing clients. If you're an existing client, you can work directly with your client success manager like Melissa. So do not sign up for this if you're an existing client. But if you are not a client and you want to experience this, you want to try it out, you can join us in this win back workshop where you will build a campaign in PropFuel, your own instance of PropFuel, build a campaign to get out the door. And if you'd like, and we'll put that link in the chat as well. Having said that, Michelle has a question. Keith, let's start with you. How did this integrate with your database? Was it an easy process?
I mean, for us, like I mentioned, it did, but it was not an easy process because we are on a much older on-premise version of Microsoft CRM. We're not even on Dynamics 365 CRM. So we did have some initial trouble there, but we were able to work through and at least connect us to that contact record between PropFuel so that they could write back certain fields. But before we were even able to do that, all we had to do was provide PropFuel with a list of contacts, and it was very simple. And then if you have a unique identifier that PropFuel can use, then they can track everything that individual receives from all campaigns, even if that person is uploaded on multiple lists.
Thank you. Jenna, before you answer the same question about the integration with your database, Bill, we are going to do these workshops. I think we're doing them quarterly, if I'm not mistaken. There will be another one coming up. And if not, you can always just set up a time to talk to our team and see how that would work. And then Nick, you asked a question about, if 30 or 40%, if you get 30 or 40% engagement on advocacy or so, and next time you send an advocacy message, aren't you still missing the 60% of people that didn't interact with that? I think
I want to answer that.
Oh, go ahead. You do it, Melissa.
I want to answer that, but I want to let Jenna finish first. Is that okay?
Well, let's go rapid fire. We got 1 minute. Go ahead, Jenna. Tell us a little bit about your integration, and then Melissa.
Yeah, so our integration with our database was actually really simple. We don't have the most intricate integration, but we use Noah by JL Systems, and it uses a very simple write back called a list code, and PropFuel is kind of automatically set up to have that really quick, easy integration. So we're just sending list codes back from everything in PropFuel, which helps us when we pull data out.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks, Jenna. Sorry, David, I didn't want to
No, go ahead.
I really wanted to answer Nick's question. So I think this is perfect. So Nick's question really gets to the idea of okay, if you have one question that then branches you off to somewhere else, what are you doing for those other people? And in a normal human conversation, not everyone's going to be available that exact moment you want them to be. We'll see with PropFuel, I like to call them really long tails, like huge, long response rates, so that it's not just people responding that day. You'll see people going back to check-ins from weeks or months ago. But more importantly, I think it's about keeping people in that campaign. There'll be multiple touch points. So especially for renewals or something like that, you want to give them multiple chances to answer the question to end up giving you that insight or intent that you need. So yes, we definitely don't want to assume that the 60% of people that are not answering just don't care. We want to give them another opportunity, maybe phrase the question in a slightly different way that might resonate with them more, because the people that'll answer the direct yes, no, I'm going to renew are not always the same people that are going to answer the what's holding you back or why have you hesitated from renewing questions.
And I'll add to that, instead of necessarily saying these are the people that want this messaging, what we can see is the people that are saying, you know what, I don't want this messaging. So the people that don't respond and you don't know, sometimes you still have to guess. There's going to be some guessing. The goal is to reduce the amount of guessing they have to do. Jenna and Keith, thank you so much for joining us. To all of you that took an hour of your time to join us for this talk today, really, really appreciate you joining us. That's a wrap for today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.